Let's see. All right, so you have all made it to the creative market outlet. We're really excited about this. Dan King from Coastal Food Shed is our moderator for this.
Morning, everybody.
Thank you to our sponsors. Dan, do you want to take it away?
Sure. You gotta give me a second. I'm not super familiar with monitoring things on Zoom. So I wanted to, say good morning to everybody. It's still morning, technically, right? And thank everybody for coming, especially our sponsors and the panelists. So I'll give a little bit of background about myself and then we'll introduce the panelists. So my name is Dan King. I am, I guess, technically a farmer. I grew up on a farm in Dartmouth. It was a hay farm. Now it's a mixed farm. We're going to have some animals. We have farm stand. We have a vegetable grower. But I also work for Coastal Food Shed. If anybody's familiar with Coastal Food Shed, it's a New Bedford-based nonprofit that works to connect farmers to, eaters or growers and producers, all making it easier for people to eat what's good and what's local. So I'm very eager to have this conversation about unique and creative market outlets, because I think it's important to the sustainable future of, farming in our region. I think there's a lot of opportunities and I'm eager to hear about what our panelists have to say about this. So I'm going to go ahead and put, so I'm on the spot. If you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your experience and your journey to where you are here today.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good morning. So I'm up first. So my name is Don Fernandez. I've been invited to contribute to this panel. A little bit about myself. I am a third-generation cranberry grower. I started my journey full-time in cranberries back in 1981. Actually, I'd like to say it was by accident. I had no intention, having grown up in cranberries, I had no intention of coming back and becoming a farmer. My father had gotten sick and I was off in school. I was actually in my first job and getting ready to go back to school, and decided to come back and just kind of operate the farm temporarily until we could find a way to offload the property. And I caught that cranberry bug. Actually, the industry was in a totally different place at that time. It was a high value crop. Prices were going up, and allowed me the opportunity to kind of make decisions that I wouldn't have made if it had been any other time. I like to think it was kind of a perfect storm with cranberries. So for the first 15 years, we were cranberry growers. We weren't really cranberry farmers. We grew cranberries. We grew as many as we could. The model was you send it into one of the handlers, and they sell the fruit. It wasn't until roughly the late 90s when the first big crash came, pricing came tumbling down, and now we had to make choices. It was really difficult at that point to make numbers work. And that's when I began looking at different options for sustainability. Most of the sustainable models in cranberries at that time were simply to grow more cranberries by renovating out of varieties that we had, simply grow more cranberries and mirror what was going on in other emerging growing regions in the country and in other parts of North America. And I, at that point, had to make some decisions whether or not I was going to stay with the farm and develop a model that may work. And that's when we looked at direct marketing, began Fresh Meadows Farms, which is the certified organic end of the business. And that journey has carried us up to this point. I think I'm at the point in my life as I reach retirement age, I had to make I came to kind of a crossroads, kind of a soul searching as to whether or not I was going to find a way to sell off some property, sell off the farm in order to retire, or pursue some of the avenues that we've been able to grow with Fresh Meadow Farms. And I realized that I still had a real passion for farming. I have a real desire to create a sustainable model that I can include some other growers, some other with some of the dynamics taking place right now in the cranberry industry, some other growers that want to continue to direct market on a small level. And I think looking back at the passion I have right now to stay in the business, that farming DNA goes way beyond my decision back in 1981 to come back to the farm. I grew up as a kid selling vegetables on a little farm stand on 58. That was the main route to the Cape. And even before that, I mean, it was, you know, ancestors that had escaped a drought in the Cape Rhode Islands back in the early part of the century and became and emigrated over here and to this country, became really the work force for an emerging cranberry industry back in the early part of the century. And I'm proud, I think, to still be part of that, still be on some of the property that those early ancestors grew on, and a little bit about my background.
Thanks, Tom. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Esther, if you want to talk a little bit about yourself and your journey to where you are, your farming experience.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for having me. My name is Esther. I own Gnarly Vines Farm here in Tiverton, Rhode Island with my husband, Joe. We kind of became farmers by accident. It wasn't the plan either. We used to live up in Boston, and once I had my first child, we decided that, you know, life needed to be a little bit more calm. We wanted a better spot to raise our kids. So we started looking for property, and we found this property here in Tiverton. It's 16 acres. It's near the beach, and it's a beautiful town. So we bought it. We're like, oh, let's be homesteaders. There's 2 big greenhouses here. And we had plans of maybe growing some vegetables and starting growing our own food. And then my husband was working for a company whose owner also owned a farm-to-table restaurant. And he started talking to the chef there, and she's like, oh, you know, I buy farm fresh everything. So we had some chickens that were producing more eggs than we needed, and he started selling the eggs to them. And then from there, the farm was born. We started raising, we went to several farms around here. We bought their spent layers, and we started, you know, we kept raising those older chickens to get the eggs. For us, it was just a quick way of starting up the farm. And then from there, we started working with local restaurants, selling eggs. And then they started being interested in meat too. So we started raising pasture-raised chickens, pork. We source beef from my neighbor's farm and some other farms around here in Westport and Rhode Island. And then we did a lot of wholesale when we started to the local restaurants. We built like really good relationship with some local chefs. And then we started selling at farmers markets. We built a nice little following right there as well. And then we started having some cuts of meat that weren't selling well at the farmers market, and we started getting stuck with them. So we needed to figure out a way of how to not have that waste, and there was only so much meat we could eat here at home. So we decided to start preparing to cook the food. I started doing a little bit of just prepared foods and some meat pies. This is all like a little bit before COVID, and it was doing well, but I was also busy running the farm and having 2 kids and, doing everything else. I didn't really pursue that. One day I'm driving by the street near here and I saw a food truck for sale. So I told my husband, I'm like, hey, there's a food truck for sale. And he's like, that's it. This is how we're gonna, get rid of all that wasted food that left over that we are having a problem getting rid of. So we bought the truck, we put in a bunch of money into it, finished rebuilding it, and put the truck on the road. It was in the 2021, right when COVID had started. We started a food truck business, and we were able to now start utilizing all of the meats that we were having left over here at the farm. We actually increased our production to be able to keep up, and I'm sourcing meat also and vegetables from other farmers around us. The new thing that we're doing, so the food truck did really, really well in this last year and a half that we've been in business. Our production, our sales doubled. The farm is doing well too, just by being a farmer's market, doing direct to consumer sales. There's some wholesale, we do some wholesale still, but not as much as we were doing before. And then now what we decided to do is the food truck is doing well, but the food truck is a lot of work for me to be out there to, running the truck, running the farm. So we decided to start doing prepared foods. I hired somebody to run the food truck for me this year so I can have more time to do prepared foods. And to be honest with you, I think the prepared foods is doing better than the farm does. We do sell the meat and eggs, but prepared foods, it's been double the sales of the meat already. And we just started I just started again like 4 reels last month selling the prepared foods.
Yeah, that's it definitely sounds like a unique journey. I remember seeing you, well, it wasn't you, it was a worker at the Tiverton Farmers Market, I think before the food truck was a thing, when they were still at Sandy Woods.
Yep.
So what are some of the ways, so you've gone from farming, selling direct to restaurants, right? And then going farming and selling direct to consumer and some wholesale, and then adding the food truck to try to mitigate the less popular cuts of meat, which I think anybody who raises meat can speak to. There's just, it doesn't matter what kind of animal it is, there's always those cuts that are just harder to sell. And now you're looking at a journey of still using the food truck, but also doing prepared foods. So you said, where are some places that you distribute? You distribute like still direct to consumer at farmers markets? And do you do a lot of farmers markets as direct to consumer, or is it like a good split of wholesale for you? What are those kind of, do you do any online sales for those?
So right now we're just selling at the farmers markets. We go to the Mount Hope Farmers Market in Bristol on Saturdays, and to the Farm Fresh Winter Market on Sims Ave now on Saturdays as well. And we do the Tiverton Farmers Markets on Sunday. We're starting, we're going to start going to Hope in Maine. Right now I'm cooking at the kitchen right here in Tiverton at Sandy Woods, but we're going to start going to Hope in Maine, and hopefully from there we'll be able to do a little bit more distribution. I looked into UPS so we can ship the food, not only the prepared foods, but also the meats. I don't know if we're gonna go that way yet. I'd like to, but I'm not sure that's the best way to distribute our food right now. We're offering home delivery. We're working with What's Good Before in Market Mobile. Sales went down on that, so we stepped away from distributing that way, but it seems like now things are picking up again. So we're gonna be going back to Market Mobile. We're gonna join we're gonna join you. And we're gonna do probably some home delivery of the fruits too. I'm not doing wholesale yet, but I am signing up with a few places right now.
Okay. And then, well, obviously you made these decisions to change the way you were bringing in income on the farm. Were there, and you said that your sales like doubled almost as a result of like the food truck, and what were some of the relief you found? Was it like you have to store less, frozen product now and what were some of the cuts that you saw that you were able to like popularize through preparing that you couldn't popularize, selling directly?
Definitely chicken legs, the quarters. We were having a hard time selling. I mean, chickens, everybody at the farmers market are looking for boneless, skinless chicken breast. So we always run out of that, but we have a ton of chicken legs left over. So with the food truck, we were able to put fried chicken, garlic fried chicken, just like how we do in Brazil. Marinate it in garlic and let it sit overnight, and then we just fry it, no batter or anything like that. And that is like one of the most popular things that we sell in the food truck. So, besides that, like the chicken backs and bones, we've been able to utilize that now to make stock. I give it to my dog. And then I have some chefs too that want just the bones so they can make stock at the restaurant. So that kind of like being able to utilize the legs, because even the chefs, I used to reach out to them like, hey, I have a bunch of chicken legs now, and restaurants would say the same thing. Now they want like 6 ounce boneless skinless chicken breast, because that's what they have on their menu. With the food truck, we were able to use all of that and just fried chicken. With the pork, we were getting stuck with some strange cuts too. And what I did is, in Brazil, we have this dish called feijoada, which is black beans, and we stew beans with pork. So I use like the hocks, and now I use everything, but before I was getting stuck with a lot of hocks and a lot of like shoulder or ham. I put that all in the beans, serve it in a food truck. People love it.
Right. All right. Thank you. That's great. It's nice to see stuff utilized. That's a little harder I experienced the difficulty with selling the less popular cuts. Dom, I am not super familiar with the cranberry industry, and you'd used the word handler before. Do you mind explaining a little bit of like the traditional selling process and then how you're selling your berries now?
Sure. So yeah, traditionally, the way most all cranberry growers, the model that we use is we simply grow, and a handler is the source where we move our fruit through. There are 3 or 4 large handlers in the state, the largest obviously being Ocean Spray, and then some private label. Ocean Spray is a co-op. So typically the way that cranberry growers operate is you simply grow the fruit and you deliver it to a handler. In the case of Ocean Spray, the handler processes the fruit, markets the fruit, and then profits come back to the grower. Private labels, pretty similar, whether it's a Deacon's or some of the local handlers. So you have no control over, all you control is how much you produce. And we are farming in locations where it's very difficult to grow another crop. For the most part, those beds are conducive for cranberries and not much else. So it's unique for any sizable operation to try and direct market all of your fruit. Typically, a direct marketing operation for cranberries, you would have a contract with a handler, and you would, during the season, you have a short season for fresh. So you're basically looking at like October through maybe the end of December, where you have fresh produce, and you could sell that at a farmer's market. And in our case with Fresh Meadows Farms, we do a lot of work with CSAs as add-ons. But typically you don't really move enough fruit. You can't move enough fruit off of a bed that you would be harvesting. So you would dump the rest into a handler. So what we did is with Fresh Meadow Farms, we were doing organic. We're looking at a model where we're growing much less fruit. We're looking at a high-end kind of a boutique product and look to move it all. And the challenge with that is that it's very labor intensive and it can be very costly to handle your own fruit. Handling means essentially taking the raw product off of the bog, cleaning it to a point where it's retail ready, and removing the chaff, removing the poor fruit, packaging, transportation, and the like. And so we've had to collaborate and partner up at different levels. Partner up with other growers, that like-minded growers that are interested in a certified organic cranberry. And more importantly, we move a good percent of our fresh fruit. We wholesale it through the partner that we use has been Jonathan Organics up in Rochester. They move, their margins are in line with what we need for margins in order to make this work. And they also have relationships through their sprouts with with a lot of the retailers, the retail markets that we feel create the margins that allow us to do this. So we wholesale roughly 60% of our fresh fruit currently through Jonathan's, and then we sell the rest on our own through smaller retail markets, like I say, through farm stands. CSAs have become an increasingly large market for us, where they do the buy-ons, the add-ons in the fall.
Now, how'd you get the audio back again?
We're gonna log out and log back in again, okay?
Can you hear me?
There was a question, and most of the questions will wait till the end. Somebody asked how many acres of berries, and I know you do a split, right? Some are organic and some are not organic. Is that accurate?
Right. I like to look at it as my kind of my day job. We have not been able to make the organic part of it up to this point fully sustainable, although that's the goal with some of the things that we're doing right now. So split has been, we sell roughly 21, 22 acres of conventional at this point, which is a sizable amount more fruit, because you're growing somewhere between 250 barrels in a barrel, and cranberry lingo is 100 pounds per acre. When we harvest organically, those numbers drop down to a sustainable number that we target is around 50 barrels per acre, as opposed to 250 on a conventional. So it's much less fruit. And then we handle it all. And we wholesale about 60% of that fresh fruit through Jonathan's. The acreage, I think there was a question about how many acres. We started out back in 2004, converting around 3 acres of cranberries over to organic. Last year, we harvested around 12, and we also buy in some from some other organic growers.
Wi-Fi.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Now you still have video.
The host, can you mind? Oh, I can do that. Dom, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. When you talked about the handlers and the process of packaging and washing and doing all that and sorting and cleaning, which obviously is probably the lion's share of the labor, I would imagine, after they're harvested. Did you have to buy any special equipment, or as part of this journey from 2004 on, to be able to like package stuff on your own? I know that in my experience, like it's a very different animal, like after the harvest, and to like have to add on all of those, like not only the materials or labor, but a space to work in. Did you find that a difficult part of this transition to organics?
That's really where we're at right now. That's the real challenge I have. We've been operating at capacity for roughly 6 or 7 years, which creates some real issues, because at the capacity that we're at, we cannot bring in any more fruit from outside, and The marketplace, when you're getting into retail, the market for cranberries from the time we began back in 2004 until about 6 or 7 years ago has really changed, where the retailers really want all of that fruit within a 3-week period. They want that fruit on the shelves 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. So it gives us about 3 weeks to really process that fruit. We have I think, a really efficient small setup that we've been using, and we can get a high quality fruit out the door during that 3-week period when the demand is there. But as I said, we've been at capacity for a while, and what that has created for us is a real issue with driving down costs, because the labor involved in the facility that we have right now, it just can't, it can't create the efficiencies that are needed with what's happening out on the retail marketplace. And what's happening on the retail marketplace is, if you folks go into a local Whole Foods or a Shaw's and you buy you buy organic cranberries, 90 to 95% of that is coming from out of state, and not only from out of state, it's coming from out of the country. Most of that is now being brought in from Canada, and they have some inherent advantages up north because it's colder, but they also have the Canadian crop is more heavily subsidized than the US, favorable exchange rate, and essentially the handlers, the large players that procure cranberries down here, have decided that they have essentially given up on the fresh fruit in Massachusetts because they can't secure enough. So when we try and sell into those retail chains, we're selling at a huge disadvantage. And the only place where we can begin to create sustainable advantages is we're going to need to drive down our cost of the handle. We cannot chase pricing with what's being purchased in from outside of the country, but I think we can create a price that's sustainable, but we still need to drive down our cost. And to drive down those costs, it's going to be a pretty huge investment in, to your question, Dan, and our ability to handle and the equipment. And so we have been looking at opportunities for grants and other alliances over the last 3 to 4 years. And we're at the point right now where we are making that huge investment. We are looking to align ourselves with other like-minded growers who are looking to direct market, create their own label, but aren't necessarily organic. There's no way that we can justify making the type of investments that we're looking to make because we don't have a sizable enough of a production level of organic in Massachusetts. But there is now a real desire from a lot of small local cranberry growers that are essentially they're facing extinction based on the dynamics that have taken place. And that's what I'm trying to do over the next year to 2, is to create an alignment where we can include a much larger base, and then at that point allow us to invest in the handle so that we can create some legs for what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, it seems like on the conversations I had with y'all the other day and in the panel today that
It is recording.
one
And
of
so
the
confirm you're okay with it recording.
one of the themes throughout this is partnerships. So that I've found, at least, and I know with my work at Coastal Food Shed and with the King Farm, like partnerships, it seems like as there are fewer farms in this region, whatever you want to define the region as, there is more folks like collaborating in various capacities, whether that's just wholesale or whether it's partnering on planning and growth. Esther, when you were talking before, you talked about how the food truck and the prepared foods, kind of like used up, you were able to use all of the food you were growing, and then you had to collaborate with other growers. Can you talk for a minute on how partnerships have, affected, or the importance of them in the growth of your farm?
Sure. That's a huge help for us, partnering. So when I think here about value added products, we think not only what we can make with what we're producing, but also other avenues to create value to what we're doing. So we, see value adding. We teamed up with Coggeshall Farm Museum a couple years ago, I'm sorry, to rejuvenate their pastures. That farm they were struggling to bring people to see the museum and all of that. So they reached out to us and like, oh, hey, you want to do something here? We're like, yeah, sure. So we started bringing animals there. Our animals are not only acting, as an 1800 farm, but they also doing work around the farm there to rejuvenate the pastures. The pigs are doing some work at clearing some brush, opening up new paths so that their customers can go, nature walks around the woods and all of that. We also work with Johnson Wales University. My husband's in computers, and he and his brother are both very interested in robotics, just like simple automation that can be done by anybody, computer literate or not. So we teamed up with Johnson Wales. We took in some of their students as interns here at the farm, and my husband was their instructor in the robotics department. So instead of helping the students come up with a robot that is going to go fight with another robot from another school, we were like, you know what, why don't we build some sort of robot that can do work around small farms like ours. So we had the students build a chicken coop door that opens and closes automatically, either with a timer or with a solar light. So the students were really excited about that. That was really awesome. So now JBU came back to us, and they want us to be part of they're starting a new master's degree in nutrition. So they reached out to us and they asked us if we wanted to be to do the same thing over again, have some of their students, the nutrition students, intern with us. And we're like, absolutely. So not only this is a 2024 thing, so not only will we help the students will be coming to work with us at the farm. So if they're going to learn about farming, they're going to work with us in the food truck, learn how to run a business, all of that included. So that's kind of like how we see value added. I also have chefs that we work with, in the parts of education and teaching, and more and more opportunities. So cooking is just one of the things that we found to be able to move the meats, but there's also other opportunities for partnerships. Right now, my husband is actually in a meeting with another couple. They want to be farmers. They have 3 acres, but they need more land. And we kind of want to focus more on the food production. And everybody knows that having employees is like what labor costs is like the biggest bottleneck, at least for us. So what we're doing is we're trying to partner with this couple, because we have the land, and we're like, hey, we have the land, you need land, come work with us, let's partner up. You guys do the animals, take care of the animals, raise the animals for us and for them, and we focus on the food production part. And I think this is going to happen. So we are always looking for partnerships with other farms, not only from buying from other farms, but also having them come here. We have 16 acres, and there's so much opportunity here on our land. Just small enterprises that can start popping up in here. And it's something that's beneficial for us and for other people that are looking for land and looking for opportunity. Because we've been a farm now for 8 years, and we've been doing the sales, food sales for a while now too. So we have the market, and expanding is hard when you don't have enough, a good team behind you. So we're always looking for opportunity to be able to expand and bring these people with us, because our success is their success and vice versa.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I know this can be a question for both of you. Somebody asked in the chat, you were talking a lot about your on-farm opportunities, students moving on the farm to do work and learn, and then other people looking. Do either of you do like farm tours or any kind of agritourism? Or do you do bog tours, Don?
Yes. That's kind of evolved a little bit. We were on some of the local sites as a bog tour farm. When we first started out, we found it to be really challenging. A lot of the tours are centered around the time we're harvesting. Folks are coming down, they love to see the cranberry harvest. There's a lot of opportunity for tours, but it's also a difficult time for us, for human resources, just having the help to conduct the tours. And so we kind of got away from it for a while and shied away. It just, we didn't have the, as I say, the resources of the time, because we're so busy during the harvest during that time. But we recently have found a model that seemed to work out better. We had tied in the last 2 years with Colette and a couple of the larger tours, which don't necessarily center on the time when we're really, really tied up with trying to finish our harvest, and we really don't have the manpower. That worked. It worked out well. We were able to, if you're scheduling larger tours, it's a little easier in terms of the logistics, and the timing, and we were able to collaborate with some of these tours with the Growers Association, where they would take on some of the tours where we couldn't in terms of time-wise. It allowed us another income stream, where we could sell, if it's off season, obviously we couldn't sell our fresh product. We need to sell something that was non-perishable. We were able to tie in with a couple of, well, in this case, it was a buyer of ours who was selling a sauce. These tour groups that come in, they love to buy products. We were selling T-shirts and hats and telling our story. And it was a great opportunity to get our story out, to get cards out, create some other opportunities for some of our online sales. So I guess we found a way to incorporate tours into what we do, something that we had difficulty with back 5 or 6 years ago.
Do you think that's something that you'll continue doing? Do you think it's important to the future opportunities of cranberry growers, especially like smaller scale, not growers?
I think it's a great opportunity. It's a great appetite in the tour business, and I think it's a great opportunity for the smaller farms that want to continue to particularly direct market and stay in the business. I think with us, we're going to need to find the ones that fit our time frame based on some of the things that we're going to be looking to do in the fall. It's going to be difficult for us to tie into what is really the peak of the tour season in October, where folks want to come out and just see a harvest. Honestly, a lot of these tours, they would love to come out and they want to see the water harvest. They love to see the cranberries floating, and this is what they've been conditioned to. And what we feature with Fresh Meadows Farms is a traditional dry harvest. That's difficult to tie into a tour schedule, because when you dry harvest, it's really totally tied into what the weather is, what the conditions are in that bog. So we don't know when we're going to dry harvest. With a wet harvest, it's on a time. You can bring in these tour buses and they get to see what they like. So we had some difficulties trying to fit that kind of that tour appetite into what we do. There's some money to be made, I think, for some of a small grower that wants to really put up the facilities and create the resources to handle tours. I think that goes beyond just cranberries. We're not just selling a product, we're selling a story.
Yeah.
And that's really key. I mean, you sell your story and you can certainly incorporate tours into that whole marketing effort, I think.
I think that they're, like you said, it's definitely true. It's not, I don't know that it matters like what type of farming you're doing. You're always like selling a story.
Right.
But it definitely can challenge the resources that you have available on your farm unless you have like specific employees or days when you're just doing tours, because it is certainly not a part of operations in terms of trying to get things done or harvest, to have a bunch of folks come in who don't really, they just want to watch or be part of it. And I used to run a farm with a lot of volunteers, and it's great, but it's definitely not productive. So, but it has a different opportunity for folks. And I think it also allows us to like kind of reset that mentality. Like you said, these people all are expecting like a wet harvest because that's what they see in commercials for like Ocean Spray probably. But when it's fresh picked, and they're all dry harvested, right? They can't be wet harvested. So and I think a lot of what we're doing with agriculture, we're trying to do in this region is like, like kind of solidify what it is and realistically to folks, and taking this like, this pretty image that you think, and not that agriculture isn't pretty, but it's much more real than like what you see marketed, en masse.
Can I say,
Yeah, go ahead.
so I don't do like tours here at the farm. Exactly for the same reason. I don't have the time and I don't have the people here that could be doing that. But what I do try to do is I do like to work with chefs a lot, and I want them to keep putting our products on their menu so that our name is still out there and people are seeing us. Even though we're not doing a whole lot of wholesale, we still, that marketing is still being done for us by chefs. So once in a while, I invite a bunch of chefs here and I give them a tour of the farm. I show them around, I show them cog shell. We even had one year when we showed them the processing, how we did, how to do processing of chickens and ducks and things like that. And they loved it. And I believe that after that, those chefs, those young chefs that came here, they all came back to me. During COVID, everybody disappeared because everything was closed, but now they're all coming back because they had the opportunity to see how things were being done. They had the opportunity to try our products at the restaurants where they were working. And now, each chef is like starting their own business or, picking up pop-up markets, or just they're doing their own thing, coming back to me because they appreciated that the time that we took to build that relationship with them. So I think even if you don't have time to do tours and make money that way by charging somebody to just come and see a farm, building like strategic things where you can like try to think of strategic ways that you can add your farm's value in somebody's brain, in somebody's business. And that's kind of how we try to do.
Yeah. I think chefs are great partners for anybody in agriculture, really, because they in a lot of ways have like admiration of people who are restaurant goers, are willing to spend high dollars on food, and they can tell the story either through their menu or through their food that it's harder for the farmer's presenting raw ingredients, or she's presenting raw ingredients. So
and then the customers come to find you at the farmer's market and they're like, oh yeah, I had your chicken at this restaurant and it was really good. So now they can come and they can buy, and somehow you just created a new customer by I give away stuff to chefs all the time. Like when I have leftovers, if I have extras, I challenge them. I'm like, hey, I have a bunch of weird cuts here, or liver, or like parts and organs, and animal heads. What can you do with this? Like I give it to them. They put it on their menu. They put our name out there. They advertise it, for free, and it's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. We talked a bunch about partnerships, which I think are incredibly important. We haven't talked we talked a little bit about some challenges. Now, Esther, you prepare food. Do you have any, like, how are the health departments where you produce and sell? Have they been challenging? Have they been easy to work with?
So definitely, health department is a challenge. Right now, I'm trying to fill out for me to start at Hope in Maine, I need to transfer my permits to Hope in Maine. I have my permits at Sandywood, so now it needs to be transferred to Hope in Maine. That means that I have to do everything all over again. So they want to, they want to see like the plan. So what are the recipes you're going to serve? How you're going to serve, like the entire process. So I'm talking to Hope in Maine. I'm like, so do they want to just see a sample of how kind of things work? And she's like, no, they want to see everything. So one of the challenges I'm having right now is, okay, so I cook different things each week, depending on what I find as far as vegetables goes at the markets or from farms, as far as what I have left over, in my freezers, chicken legs or, chicken breast or whatever. But the health department wants to see all the recipes that I'm going to be selling. I'm like, but I'm not going to be stuck on one thing. Every week I'm going to do something different. And doesn't matter. I'm going to have to come up with 1,000 recipes and just put it all there and how they're going to be prepared. Permits, getting the permits is not hard. It's just a pain, with things like that. But with the prepared foods, a little bit easier. We've been trying to get our well. One of the challenges for me right now is having to go and bring my whole kitchen, all of my spices, all of this, all of that, every time I go to a commercial kitchen. So I'd love to build a kitchen right here in the farm. We've been trying to do our mobile processing unit so we could slaughter our poultry right here. And for that to happen, you have to have, in Rhode Island, you have to have a public water supply well. So the same, if I want to build a commercial kitchen here, I have to have this public water supply well, which is a well that needs to have a 200-foot radius from anything. You can't use that piece of land. So we're going to lose, a couple of acres of land that could be used to farm or whatever. That has been, one of the biggest challenges for us. The well is there. Now we need approval. We need to be able to reach the water department. We've been trying to talk to them and, like, you can't get straight answers. Keep being sent to the bosses here and there. So those are the challenges we have. Like trying to do things at the farm. I mean, besides the fact that it costs a lot of money to put up infrastructure, but it's not super hard to deal with them. It's just painful.
Yeah. Dom, obviously cranberries are very different than livestock. In your transition to organic, did you find that the process was, I don't think there are a lot of organic cranberry growers. So was it a process you kind of had to like pioneer around here, or was it fairly straightforward for you? How was that, the challenges that you found along the way?
I think if I look back when we first got started, there was a small fraternity of organic cranberry growers in Massachusetts. As they say, the marketplace has changed. I think it was there were a few more advocates on the retail side in terms of local organic cranberries. But as things have evolved, I've seen. I was by far not the largest organic grower back in 2004 or 2006 when we first got certification. Currently I am, and I've seen growers just simply not be able to sustain and go out. So yeah, the kind of discouraging part of the journey of Fresh Meadows Farms has been the fact that growers that I kind of came in with, that we had tried to set up like small co-op or organic growers, and I've seen those growers go by the wayside. And so the challenge I have is really, and kind of my desire is to create a model where I've had a number of younger growers and smaller growers that want to do organic here in Massachusetts, and trying to create a model that's somewhat sustainable, that as I begin to slide into retirement, that there'll be an opportunity for, I'm hoping, some growers to kind of pick up and not only do what I'm doing, but expand upon that. So yeah, it's difficult. The most difficult part is actually growing organic cranberries here and growing it at a production level that allows you to market at a competitive rate, competitive market anyway, whether it's not just in retail, but and we're doing a larger percentage of our sales now are online, and we're selling fruit fresh during season and frozen off season all around the country. But
How does that, oh, sorry. The online thing we talked about with Esther briefly, is that, how long have you been doing that? Is it, I mean, it's clearly seems worthwhile for you. Do you find challenges in like shipping, or, I mean, I know the cost for postage has gone up like dramatically. All that stuff is navigable for you?
Yeah, we've been doing online pretty much from the onset when we started Fresh Meadows Farms. It has grown at a fairly slow pace as part of the overall business until COVID hit. Once COVID hit, it really expanded pretty rapidly. As folks were sitting home, I think it expanded our opportunities. It expanded kind of our vision for where the online sales could go. The issue we have again is because it's such a seasonal crop, whether we're trying to market into or partner up with a CSA or a market. For the most part, we only have fresh fruit for that two and a half month period. And so the challenge is to get the frozen fruit and market that year round. So we put a percentage of our fruit goes into the freezer. And up until about 3 or 4 years ago, that would allow us to market cranberries year round. And we pretty much could move the full amount of the fruit that we were putting into the freezer by September, October, when we begin to replenish. We really started to replenish the freezer back toward the end of the harvest in November, December. But what's happened is we have been putting a bigger percent based on some of the challenges we're having with moving enough fruit during the fresh season into the freezer. So we have really looked to expand online sales and year-round sales with other customers. And that's where the costs have really come in. Over the last 2 years, our freezer costs have more than doubled. Freight charges have really gone up. The supply chain, whether it's freezer packs or insulation as we ship, has really got very expensive. And that's one of the larger challenges we have moving forward, is how we find new buyers for a larger volume of frozen product that we need to sell, because we cannot afford to hold product in the freezer the way we had in the past. It's just eating us up. It takes all the profit margin out. So that's one of the things that we really haven't actively looked to partner up with buyers of our frozen fruit on a large scale, some of the larger volume buyers. But that's something that we really are going to need to pursue actively over the next in the coming months as changes are taking place.
There's a question in the chat that for the frozen fruit, is it mostly individuals, or is it like wholesale? That currently you were just saying you're looking for more wholesale. Is it kind of a mix of both now?
We're gonna need to create a bigger mix. Most of the online sales are pretty much retail. We ship all around the country, increments of 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds. And we have only a couple of really wholesale buyers who will buy pallets at a time. And we have kind of shied away from that because we can't create the margins and some of those wholesale buyers. And frankly, we didn't really have the fruit. We needed to hold enough fruit so that we could satisfy our customers throughout the course of the year. And that's changing. So we are now currently actively searching out local buyers that would be looking for larger, a year-round source of organic cranberries and some of the large amounts, and also looking at margins that are maybe more conducive to selling that fruit from a wholesale standpoint.
Where do people find, is it just like on your website where people find frozen fruit? I don't, for Coastal Food Shed, we get cranberries maybe like September through December.
Right.
Fresh dry, but I don't even think I realized there was local frozen, certainly organic cranberries. So I should be a little ashamed of myself, but I'm curious, how do people, go about that? They just go online and shop through an online store?
Yeah, the online store is up to this point has been set up more for individual purchases, pickups, and again, for retail sales. But we simply go to our website, and I am currently actively beginning to seek partners that are looking for organic cranberries year round, such as yourself. But yeah, I mean, just contact us to our online store directly through me, and I think there are going to be opportunities for me to enter into relationships that we weren't able to 2 years ago. Things have changed, and with plans we have going forward, we expect that we're going to have a much larger supply of frozen product available throughout the course of the year.
Great. Yeah, I'll follow up with you afterwards. I had a question you had talked before. I'll ask you one more before we move back to Esther, about younger people moving into, or beginning farmers, doesn't really matter their age, moving into like cranberries. Would you have any advice on somebody who's looking to move in and grow organic cranberries? I imagine like bog real estate is, equally as difficult to come across as like, tillable land for a vegetable farmer. Imagine it has those same land challenges. So what would you advise people to look for or stay away from if they were, looking to do organic cranberries?
Well, bog real estate really, that's one of the issues that are taking place in the industry right now, is the cranberry real estate prices are really pretty low, and there's not a lot of options. Sometimes they're regulated as wetlands, and if the value is only as high as the value of the cranberries themselves. Who we were looking to partner up with, one of the things that we market is we market an heirloom variety, which we feel are more conducive for doing organic here in Massachusetts. There are only 2 commercial heirloom varieties that have been here over the course of 100 years that have been grown commercially. And most of those varieties, because they're lower producing, are being renovated out. So as I mentioned earlier, the sustainable model is to increase your production. To increase your production, you pull out some of the lower producing varieties, which typically are heirloom, and you put in these hybrids. And so what we sell and what we market is a heirloom variety, lower production, but much more conducive to what I feel is a organic cranberry here in Massachusetts. It's the Howell variety is more conducive for fresh fruit. The only way that we can differentiate our cranberries in Massachusetts, if you go into a market and you buy a bottle of cranberry juice, there's no way of telling if that's a Massachusetts cranberry or whether they came from Wisconsin or Canada. And now if you go in and you buy a bag of fresh fruit on the marketplace and it has a private label or has an Ocean Spray name on there, there's no way of identifying that as a Massachusetts berry. The only way that we can find an identifiable, create an identifiable berry here in Massachusetts is you need to market it directly, and you need to harvest it fresh, because if it's harvested wet, there's no way to kind of vertically get that product into the marketplace. And so again, kind of circling back, somebody looking to get into a direct market cranberry, whether it's conventional or organic, there are opportunities out there. Sometimes it's a real estate purchase where someone buys a house and there's a small 3 or 4 acre bog in the back of early blocks of house that don't have a tremendous value in the current dynamics of the marketplace. You can only wet harvest maybe 100 barrels per acre on those varieties, and the banks aren't going to really value those very highly. Whereas you can dry harvest that fruit, and if you can direct market that and lower volume, higher value on the other side, and if you have a way to handle that fruit, whether it's yourself or through some sort of a collaborative, the type of thing that we're trying to work with right now, and you can create all of the added value by creating a heirloom variety, an organic, and you touching all the bases. I think that's a model that is going to allow some of the smaller farms left in Massachusetts to sustain itself. They are not going to be sustainable in the new model of what's going on in the state with cranberries. Cranberries are going to continue to consolidate. It's not going to disappear, but you're going to see a few larger farms, and then essentially everything else is going to be part-time backyard cranberries. And backyard part-time cranberries, I think the model that we've created with Fresh Meadows and that we're trying to put together for some growers outside of organic, conventional included, I think is a much more sustainable model for keeping small family cranberry operations in the state.
Great, thank you. Esther, I'll ask you the same question before we open it up to other people with questions. What would advice for your model, which is obviously, very different for someone looking to maybe move their animal production into like prepared foods, or like what advice would you offer somebody, or things to kind of be aware of, stay away from?
I say do it for sure. Start with something that you were comfortable doing. Like when I started doing the prepared foods, I thought about like what's the simplest recipe that I could do and just try to sell that one thing. And I found that my meat pies were really, really easy, quick to make, cheap. And that's how I started. And people love that food, so they started buying it. And now from that one product that I, could do well, we expanded into other things. Like the food truck, if you're thinking about, doing a food truck, I say do a lot of research. Don't do a truck, do a trailer. If the engine breaks on whatever you're pulling that trailer with, you can rent another truck to go to your event, but if your food truck has problems, then you're like missing out on events. That happened a lot with me. I saw a question here asking if we cross state lines. We do with the food truck for sure. With the meat production, with the prepared foods, we can as well, as long as it's a direct consumer. Do a lot of research and homework as far as permits and as far as what you need. In the meat industry, you do have to be a USDA inspected facility if you want to sell wholesale. Even the prepared foods. So we're working on that. But I say go ahead, do it. There's what's the worst that can happen is that it's not going to sell or it's not going to work, and then you can move on to something else. I think that there's tons of opportunity, to be honest with you. I think prepared foods, value-added edible products or beauty products are super high demand right now, and you can the return on your investment, it's much higher. So if you sell a chicken, like we can sell a chicken for $25 at the farmer's market, a raw whole chicken. But if I prepare that chicken, all of a sudden I'm making 60, 80, $100 out of one chicken. So do it. Go ahead and do it. Jump through the hoops. They're not that complicated. I think it's totally worth it to
Great.
start small. Start with one product that you know you can do really well.
Yeah, that's great advice. There's another question for you in the chat. Do you have to get a permit in every town you bring your truck to?
Yes, yes. I pay thousands of dollars every year for just permits. So not only do you have to have a permit for every town that you go to, but you also have to have a health inspection in every town you go to. So every time I go, not in Rhode Island, so it's okay. In Massachusetts, every town I go to, first of all, I have to get the permit from the town.
Oh,
And I have to get inspected by the fire department. So that's 3 permits. They're not cheap. They're like $70 to $150. New Bedford, it's a place that I don't even really go to with the food truck. I mean, I did at the beginning when I did the exposure, but now the person hiring me is paying for the permit, because you can get a one-time permit for, I think it's $85 plus all the health department and all the stuff. But if you want to be a year-round truck, there, I think it's like $500 a year. It's like it's the most expensive permit in New Bedford. So I don't go.
600. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really high. So what I did too, in talking about partnerships and circling it all back with the food truck, I go to a lot of public events. I signed up with the PB food truck events here in Rhode Island, and I go to their events like the Roger Williams Zoo every Friday. And then he has events here in Fall River, Warwick, all over the place. And it's nice because then you don't have to do the work of trying to find work, like he's there. He's like, okay, well, I'll give you this much events. Are you available? You're not available. I'm going with them. And then it makes sense to get all those permits and to get, to pay all that extra money to be at these events, because you're going to be doing lots of them.
Right. All right, great. There was a question earlier for Dom, I think, is online sales related. Do you use something like Barn to Door, or like, do you have a specific platform you use for your online sales?
I am actually in the process of, I think, making a potential connection with Barn to Door. Up to this point, we pretty much have relied on our website. We recently changed our platform over to a Shopify. We continue to try to enhance the kind of shopping experience on our website. We did for a number of years work with Market Mobile. Again, with looking at some of the new challenges we have right now, and I think we need to become more aggressive in terms of some of the platforms we're using. So we are going to begin to explore some new potential platforms that we felt that we really didn't need to up until about 2 years ago. So
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of platforms out there to kind of know which one is the right one or best one, and they all have unique challenges. And it's definitely, if you carry a lot of products, it is not an easy thing to like migrate from one to the other. And it's tough without like firsthand experience from somebody to know like if this one works or if it doesn't work, because you can get really far into it and be like, like I didn't expect this to happen.
Yeah, it's an inventory nightmare too, because now you have to populate several websites with that's my biggest challenge on selling online. It's having all my inventory.
Yeah, inventory is my favorite thing as well. So there's a question for me in the chat to hear what I do with Coastal Food Shed. So Coastal Food Shed, I said in the beginning, is a nonprofit in New Bedford that works based in New Bedford that works to connect farmers to consumers, essentially, or makers to consumers. So we have a online platform that we can sell to. We deliver to 19 towns and cities along, Rhode Island and Massachusetts. So if you're looking for outlets and don't want to like create your own website. You can sell through us. We act as we're a food hub, and you can bring your stuff to us, and then we deliver all the way from, I think it's Seekonk and Tiverton to like Wareham Onset, and then up north to Lakeville, essentially like the 44 line. So we also have direct to consumer sales in person for farmers markets, our mobile farm stands, but our online market, which also provides wholesale opportunities for, chefs can log in and get, local milk or eggs or produce and things like that. So if there are people out there that are kind of wanting to explore this online world without going through the work of creating your own platform, but getting to a wider audience of people, Coastal Food Shed offers those opportunities. I will say, in my experience, I haven't been doing this a very long time, but it feels like a long time, that like these partnerships and like you meet people that are really good at what they do, and everybody kind of has their own skill set that they bring into a partnership. So being able to all work together for a common goal and try to boost the dollar value and awareness of local agriculture. It's, I think, something very special to all of us, emotionally, but it also has to be financially and economically viable. Otherwise it doesn't last. But I think I've learned at least that there is no real limit to like the market for us. Like you can have two farm stands across the street from each other and they can both succeed. It's just raising awareness to these customers and working together to try to figure out how we can all, get these products to whatever customers are available. I know in my experience, we'll sell kale from like 3 or 4 different farms at the same time, the same kind of kale, and customers buy what they want to buy from the farm they want to buy from. And like with cranberries, there are some folks that would, now that they know there are organic cranberries, they're going to be very mad if I don't have them on the market because they want organics. And then there are going to be other customers that just want local cranberries and they don't want to pay the extra price. But it's nice to make the options available to customers so that they have the choice. And I think that's where our virtual market really shines, is that people can, given the options of what's available out there, they can decide how they want to spend their money and who they want to support. And I mean, I think that having all these farmers together is pretty great. So I know that prepared foods has been a hard spot for us lately. So Esther, we already started this conversation, but we will keep it going. Especially prepared foods that have, local ingredients in them, which is obviously like transparency is a big thing in any partnership. I don't see any more questions. I see a bunch of links for if anybody's looking for how to reach out to Gnarly Vines or Fresh Meadows. If anybody has questions, you can raise your hand or you can just unmute yourself and ask your question away. We have about, I think, 10 minutes left. So I don't know if there are any questions.
I have questions.
Yeah,
Or
go ahead.
first, I want to say thank you, Dom and Esther. This has been amazing. I am so impressed by the two of you, how much you've been able to innovate from the beginning of what you didn't think you were going to be doing for the rest of your life to the businesses that you have grown. Amazing. So thank you. I kind of do what Dan does and what Esther does. And so, Dom, my question's for you. I don't have freezer space right now. I would love to have a nice freezer for my retail store. So I need fresh. When is the best time to contact you? Or I can't.
The fresh, we typically have fresh available right around October 1st. Depending on the season, for color and so forth, we will start harvesting sometimes as early as late September, but until we can put together, do our food safety training and bring our crew in and start to sort, we generally target October 1st, and then the fresh season should run right through the end of the year. We generally have it right up until about Christmas. Fresh is a challenge at times because we really don't know what the crop is going to be, and what the volume is going to be. But I think with what we're looking to put in place right now, we should be able to, and some of the partners that we're looking to develop, we should be able to ensure that we have enough fresh so that we can continue to satisfy our current fresh markets and then begin to pursue some new ones. So yeah, we'll be more than happy to talk to you. Also, we'll be certainly looking for some new ways to move fresh. But again, the biggest challenge we're going to have, I think, going forward is going to be looking to collaborate with buyers of the frozen. And I know you said at this point you don't have enough freezer space. That's going to be our largest challenge, again, to move more frozen product.
And so the fresh, I'd be able to buy just like loose berries, because like I sell them by the pound, and we also we have a certified kitchen, so we also do prepared foods as well. So I use cranberries that way as well.
Oh, certainly, yeah. You can buy any way you want. We can sell it to you bulk, in any quantities, or we're flexible. And price it accordingly, something that should meet what you're trying to accomplish on the end for an end game.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. There's a question in the chat from Karen for either of you. Any regulatory hurdles that make your work harder, or what would make what changes to regulations might make what you do easier?
I like I said earlier, our major hurdles here are with the health department as far as being able to use the buildings we have and the infrastructure that we already have here at the farm to do things. So like if I want to do slaughtering of our chickens, which would cut our cost, in half, to building a commercial kitchen. Here in Rhode Island, you have to have a $50,000 well that, it needs to be designed by some special engineer, and then you need to run all that, do all the infrastructure, where we have a well already at the farm that produces way more water than the well that we put in to be able to meet these requirements. And the water is clean, everything is perfect, but as far as they're concerned, it's not good enough. It needs to be some, special thing that, will cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars just because of some regulation that doesn't really mean anything.
You had to put in a second well? You already had a well?
Yep. Yeah. And that was just for slaughtering. So now we have to put in, if we want to do the commercial kitchen here, now besides having this new well, having water coming from that well, we also are going to have to put in a new septic system, because we can't be near the septic system that we have for the house. So we wouldn't be able to build the kitchen right here next to the house, because it needs to be at a certain distance from the septic system, and it needs to be far away from the animals, and it needs to be, there are lots and lots and lots of regulations that get in the way for sure.
Yeah. Dom, anything for you to Karen's question?
I think any regulatory issues pale compared to Esther, dealing with the problems that she has. Most of those come into play with regards to our ability to handle. I would say that they're probably more food safety issues and issues that we have to deal with than I would say regulatory, which would be more on the production end. So, but nothing that we can't jump over. It's some of the costs can be prohibitive with some of the food safety standards, particularly if you're going to get the product directly into retail. But there are some avenues through MDA with like Commonwealth quality and things like that, which help out from that side. So, but the regulatory issues are kind of the typical regulatory things that any cranberry operation would be involved with because of our use of and our proximity to water. So, but it's nothing unique to what we're doing from an organic standpoint.
I was muted. Thank you. Anybody else have questions from the gallery, the group? No. Yeah, so we have a few minutes left. My watch is always like 5 minutes fast, despite how many times it changes. So I think we're past time, but we're not actually past time. But it's good for keeping me on time with some things. We won't jump into any serious questions, knowing there's only a few minutes. I guess the only other question I had was advice and partnerships. If there was, in just a minute or two, like if you had either, if there are indications of like a good potential partner or a bad potential partner, because not all partnerships can work out well. Do you have any experience or anything you want to say about just things to look for when jumping into partnerships with, other businesses or individuals?
My advice would be, if whether it's a partner or a new opportunity, a marketing opportunity, is to first know your farm, know your operation, understand your strengths and weaknesses, and understand how these partnerships, these collaborations, how they could work, how they could accentuate the whole, more or less. So you certainly need to, I've always stressed with some of the growers to really know your cost structure, know exactly, what your cost is at the farm, and where your strengths are at that farm before you get into a communication with anyone at any level. I mean, there's so many different partnerships. When you talk partnerships, you can start strategic business partnerships, resource partnerships in terms of state resources and things like that. But until you really know your farm and you understand what the strengths and weaknesses are, and the parts that really what can add to your farm and make it whole, you really need to dwell on that first and understand that before you can realistically negotiate any partnerships or any even sales opportunities.
Great. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's definitely important to know yourself. Esther, there's only about a minute left. If you have anything you want to add on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also think that partnerships it's a very diverse thing. So start with your friends, in your family. Find what their strengths and how can they add to your business without you having to pay them anything, or without them having to pay you anything. So we have a huge network of friends and from all sorts of backgrounds. So we have friends who are lawyers, and we go to them when we need lawyer stuff. I have a friend who's an interior designer, and when I need my table at the farmer's market looking pretty for some special event, I ask her to come with me, and we go shopping. She comes, she designs the table, and we keep using that. I think, and then not only does my table look pretty, then I, give back the favor to her. I advertise her services. I give her free food. I have friends who are photographers who do the same thing. They come, they take pictures of my food when I need pictures of the food, and I pay them back in food, or sometimes I pay them back in money. But definitely knowing your business, your strengths and your weaknesses, definitely very important. And here we try to figure out on our weaknesses, how can we find somebody who has the strength to bring us up on what we're failing, or what we're not capable of expanding on because of the lack of whatever it is. You just go find that in somebody else. Make sure that you know them well before you sign any contracts, and start slow, but make it profitable for both you and them, and you will see things will flourish.
Great. I wanted to, obviously we could probably talk longer about more questions. I'm always very interested in these things. But I think we have to make way for the next topic. So I want to thank you both very much, Esther and Dom, for participating. It was nice to hear you speak, hear your story. I definitely learned a lot, and you will be getting in personal follow-ups from me. And for anybody still in the room, there is a link in the chat for a survey if you want to fill it out after. So thank you all.
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. I am going to share my screen now. Come on, computer. So you are currently in Zoom room C. And this should be a list if my computer behaves.
It is.
Okay, you can see that. So this is a list of the next talks. So Zoom room A will be farm food safety, Zoom room B, creating a positive and productive farm environment through communication, and Zoom room C, where you are, using the whole animal value added meat cuts. There is a 10-minute break. So these talks will be starting at 11:35. It is now 11:27. So you have about 8 minutes till the next set of talks start. And hopefully in the chat, we're getting links to the next set of talks. Thank you. And also another link to the chat, to the survey, which really helps us if you can fill that out. There's also a bonus if you fill out our survey. If you fill out our survey, you have the opportunity to get a 10% off at Johnny's Seeds discount. So if you needed more of an incentive, there you go.